don't do well, the Sandman will come and get your ass off the stage. So I didn't know what the hell I was going to do that was going to be appealing to black folks in Harlem. But you know what? If you look at black people, we are poetry. Everything we do is poetic. But it takes a poet to see it and understand it. Because of my fear and knowing I was going to be talking to a bunch of black folks, I came to Harlem. And I started walking around Harlem, just hanging out and listening. I had my eyes open, my ears open, and I was listening. And brother walk up, brother like you say, yo, what's your thing, brother? I'm in the Black Panthers. Okay, what's your thing? I'm in the Nation of Islam. So I said, I see. What your thing is like a revolutionary pronoun. And at the same time, look how it was connected. What was the hit song at that time? It's your thing. Do what you want to do. Remember that song? That was the song at the time. And black folks politicized the shit by saying what's your thing, expecting to say, what involvement in the movement do you have? So my first poem was, what is your thing, brother? Is it a black thing? Will it save black women and children? Will it build a black nation? What is your thing, brother? Will it be good to black women? Will it be good to black you? What is your... And it was, I would say it was not one of my best poems, but it touched all the points that had to be made. And then we went on stage and I had seen this demonstration at Howard University. They were trying to get rid of their president. His name was Nesbitt at the time. They didn't like him. They had an effigy of him hanging from a tree. And they were marching around the tree saying, be beat, bang bang, Ungawa, Black Power. You remember that? Yeah. Be beat, bang bang. That was one of the chants. The other chants that they were saying, are you ready, niggas? You got to be ready. Now, I ain't never heard that on TV. Are you ready, niggas? You got to be ready. That shit was fierce. You hit it on television. And to see black kids walking around a tree with a effigy of the president hanging. Are you ready? So here I am, me, Garland Kane, and David in David's apartment. David lived right around the corner, right across the street from the park. And we're talking about going on stage as a group. So my concept is if we gotta look and act like a group. So we should sing together. David couldn't hold a note if he handed it to him. Kane was tone deaf. They did not sing. I'm thinking we could sing something like "Ooh Baby Baby" or something, and that was out. But now you don't have to sing. You can chant. You don't have to sing to chant. So I said, but how about us going on stage chanting, "Are you ready, niggas?" So we were on stage chanting, "Are you ready, niggas?" And Kane had a poem. I just did a little bit for y'all for Niggas Are Untogether People. I had my poem, "What is your thing, brother?" And David's first poem that he had was called, "Are You Ready, Black People?" So we had the poems and the chant. The thing about the chant that was so sweet, and we didn't have Elijah as a conga player. There was a brother named Hakeem, and he had a group. He became a photojournalist later, but he had an actual dance group, and he played the little drums. They were finishing up, and they were packing up and leaving the stage. And I pointed him and said, "Stay," because I just thought we needed some background. So Hakeem stayed on the stage. He played something behind us, and we chanted, "Are you ready, nigga? You got to be ready." By the time we got to the middle of the stage, all of the 5,000 people that were in the park that day were chanting, "Are you ready?" It was a hit. We were a hit from the moment we got together. And the very next week, we had a gig at New York University at Loeb Center. I'll never forget it. So that was the beginning. David Nelson was responsible for getting a name because we didn't have the name Last Poets. Garland Kane said, if we really are going to be revolutionaries in Harlem, we've got to have a place, endear ourselves to the people that we're trying to reach. It made a lot of sense to me. Just like you got a place, you're bringing the people in. That's what you do. So Kane came up with the idea he wanted us to call us the East Poets. I said, hell no. That sounds the East Side Kids. Hell no. But I knew where he was coming from. Our philosophy was coming from the East, not from the West. But I couldn't see us being called the East Poets. That was corny. And I told him it was corny. That was one of the first fights we had. And then David started researching. He researched a poem by Sterling Brown called "Storming Keep On Coming." He read the poem by Margaret Walker, "My People." He read a bunch of poems to try to find a name. Then he came across a poem. If anybody have the anthology called Black Fire. Black Fire is a major anthology put together by LeRoy Jones, before he was known as Amiri Baraka, and Larry Neal. And on page 237 in Black Fire, I believe that's the page, there's a poem called Towards the Walk in the Sun, written by a brother named Calpetsi Kokasili. Nobody could say his name. So he was called Little Willie Kokasili. And in Towards the Walk in the Sun, he's a South African brother. And in the poem, he's describing the horrid conditions it was to live in South Africa under the apartheid regime. And his anger is very evident. It's pouring out. But at the end, he changes the font of his typing to bold letters. And he says, this wind you hear is the birth of memory. When the moment hatches in time's womb, there will be no art talk. The only poem you will hear will be the spear point, pivoted into the punctured marrow of the villain, and the timeless native sun dancing like crazy to retrieve rhythms of desire, fading into memory. David Nelson added, therefore, we are the last poets of the world. So now we got a creed, we got a name, and then we found a place, and to compromise what Garland Kane wanted, we named the place the East Wind. And then behind that, a lot of folks don't recognize there's a place in Brooklyn called the East. But before there was the East, there was the East Wind. And in the East Wind, we sponsor some of the greatest shows on earth. Sunrise Orchestra, Leroy Jones Spirit House Movers and Players, Daughter Albert Isla, Barbie and Tears National Black Theater was started in our place. She paid us $75 a month. Now, where can you get something for $75 to bring her theater to us? We did some things in that place that was unbelievable. Leon Thomas and Pharaoh Saunders played in our spot. What you say? Nikki Giovanni started there, came up from Ohio. Everybody said, hey man, you from Ohio doing this, sister from Ohio. You all should get together. I ain't never been with no sister that wears tennis sneakers and sack dresses, and I'm sorry, and act like a little boy. I'm sorry. Nikki Giovanni, I know people want to give her credit, but she is not credible. I'm sorry, y'all. I hate to tell you that. She's not credible. She had one poem called Ego Tripping, and I think that after that, I don't know what the hell she's got. All I know is that we had a real major conflict that I feel bad about, but she let me know that her ego was a little bit beside her. The fact is that we had some phenomenal folks come through, and there was some wonderful history was made in that space. And it was where Felipe came. He used to be there a lot. And when David decided to not be at the important gig that we had, Felipe was ready to stand in. And Felipe didn't have any poetry, but he's brilliant, without question. And he knew all the backgrounds to all the songs that we were doing. And I love working with him because he could sing. And we had a good time singing together. And Kane loved it because it was like Kane became like Diana Ross, and we were like the Supremes. but it was a monster group, and it was a beginning of something that is extremely special. I mean, if I had some inside connection to Tyler Perry, I try to twist his arm to tell the story. But I don't have an inside track to Tyler Perry. And I'm not interested in that because he tells nigger tales. And I don't think I was sitting next to Spike. I know Spike. And we were at an Arrested Development video, and Spike and I sat together for the entire shooting of the Arrested Development video. And when the guy comes around the little tracks with the bullhorn, tells everybody to get up, you follow his directions. So we stood up and applauded because that's all part of the video. The guy came around a second time and he said to get up, and Spike said, don't get up no more. He said, when you see us on the TV, we're going to be standing. So I didn't know those tricks, right? So he told me that, and I said, that's interesting. Spike knows all that shit. So then at the end of the day, I'm leaving, and one of us said, we sit next to Spike, dude? I said, yeah, I was sitting next to him. He want to do a movie about y'all? I said, no, I ain't talking about him doing no movie about us. He said, man, sure it talks about, I said, brother, Spike's got his own agenda. I said, to do a movie about the last boss might be a little too much for him. You're dealing with men with egos. I said, I'm not going to suggest that he do a movie about us. He got to want to do that. That's something. He knows we exist. He knew who I was. But I'm going to tell you, we've been around for over 50 years. and we're still intimidating. I'm a nice motherfucker. I'm not a bad person. And I can't understand how come people are intimidated.
I know that's right.
I mean, we're trying. At the very moment, we're trying to segue the next generation of last sports. We know we're going to leave this planet. So I got a young brother named Sharif who's taking the spot, and he looks a lot like Gil Scott Heron. He's got a lot of his skills. He can sing and he does great poetry. We did a game together in Brazil. He was fabulous, fabulous. Works out fine. I even want to have my sister be in the group because it's time. And Aja Monet is the person that I've chosen. I told Felipe, I told Umar, he thinks he's going to be here forever, so he wasn't down with it. But we're going to be gone. So I'm trying to get people to segue into the next tier of last poets. We have to, you see, many times when the people that saw something leave, the whole process, the project goes too.
Right.
We got to stop that. The last poets is not a group, it's an institution. And people need to recognize Gil Scott Heron and I, a year before he died, we did a gig together. The Last Poets and Gil Scott Heron. Remember that gig, Papa? At Amphitheater, Carter Barron Amphitheater in Washington, D.C. Some of y'all might know where that amphitheater is. And at the end of the gig, the paparazzi had us on stage, Gil and myself. The reporter says, "Now, Gil, I got Abiodun on stage, one of the founding members of the Last Poets. Are you a Last Poet?" And Gil said, "Yeah, I'm a Last Poet." So he looked at me. I said, "Yes, Gil's the Last Poet." I said, "Because the poetry that he speaks of is the same philosophy as my poetry. No, he's not a member of this traveling group, but we're in the same vein." He said, "Now this is where you got to watch white folks." What about him biting off of your poem? I said, "Biting off of my poem? What are you talking about?" "Well, you talking about revolution and television, and Gil Scott Heron talks about the same thing." I said, "Sir, he didn't bite off my poem." I said, "When the revolution comes, some of us will probably catch it on TV with chicken hanging from our mouths. There will be no commercials." I said, "There won't be no commercials." Gil heard the poem and he loved the poem, and he said the revolution will not be televised. I said, "He graduated my poem, goddammit. He took my poem to the next level." I said, "Man, we stand on the shoulders of each other." I said, "Why are you trying to create a conflict between Gil and I?" He said, "I'm not trying to create a conflict." I said, "Yes, you are. You started out by asking people's last poet. Now you're saying he's biting." I said, "Where do you get that term biting from?" I said, "Come on, stop your bullshit, man." I said, "This interview is over right now." I got the fuck up and walked away because it was stupid. We have to, and Gil, unfortunately, I blame Clive Davis for Gil's early departure, because Clive Davis told Gil, "You don't need that band." He said, "You make a whole lot more money if you get rid of that band." Now, what do you know what you look like when you travel by yourself? An idiot. When we travel around Europe, if I ain't got opportunity with me, I'm dead. We hang out together. We walk together. You got to have backup. You got to have your partner. You got to have some backup. We were together in his family. We were together in Imola. And the thing about it, I could be in my room, he'd be in his room. We don't call each other and say, "I'll meet you downstairs in the lobby." I go downstairs in the lobby by myself. And I mean, it just happens naturally. And not to have fruit in my room. We're in Imola, a little town in Italy. You ain't never heard of Imola. It's a little town. And we downstairs, we decide we're going to walk around because that's how you get to know what's happening. And we saw all these white folks in bikes. So they ride bikes in Europe, y'all, for days. Everybody's on a bike. They stay in shape. They got flowers in the basket of their bike. Say, "What the hell's going on here?" They taking flowers down to this magazine stand. And I said, "Man, that's somebody important. They're revering. We should go down there and see what it is." So we're walking down. We see they got a frame. It's a beautiful gold frame. It's glistening in the sun. And the closer we get, it looks like it's a dark-skinned person. And Baba, I don't say nothing, but we don't know what the hell we're going to see. We get down, we look, you know who it was? Biggie Small.
Wow. What?
I'm not making this up. These old white people, old enough to be our grandparents, were putting flowers in front of Biggie Small's painting. I mean, it was a portrait of when he had the fedora hat and the pinstripe suit. So I asked Mauricio, who was the promoter who brought us there, I said, "What in the hell are these people in Imola praising Biggie Smalls was. He said, Mafioso. Mafia. I said, he was Mafia? The name of his record label was Junior Mafia.
Oh yeah.
And because of that, they connected him to the Mafia. And the Mafia, if you didn't know, is like the Robin Hood for the people. They look out for the folks against the government. I didn't know that. But these people revered Biggie Smalls in that little Italian town.
Wow.
And if I seen it by myself, nobody would believe it. But anyway, I just wanted to say, just give you all a little background and tell you some of the things that have taken place. And I appreciate the question. Yes.